Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You're watching a Fact TV presentation of the Athens and Grafton School Board meeting.
At 6 o'clock, we'll do introductions to begin with. We'll start on the screen.
Krista Gay, Athens.
Angela, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear. Angela Cartier, principal at Grafton.
And Kathy Goodwin from Grafton.
Rachel Plummer, Grafton.
Mark Furman, Athens.
Artie Merrill from Grafton.
Lynn Morgan, Athens.
Andy Haas, superintendent.
And any adjustments to the agenda other than?
I do have one that I gave you. You can, under new business.
Yep.
I think I asked if we could do under 8, if we can move B down.
Right.
And just put in a new 8B special ed update. So make 8B be 8C.
So the review and approve the teacher roster will now C, and special ed update will be B. Any other adjustments anybody sees? Communication and public comments? Anything? All right. And we're gonna review and approve the minutes of March 9. Everybody get a copy of those?
Yep.
Any corrections noted?
I move that we accept the minutes of March 9th.
All right. Let's see, how you vote, Krista?
Sorry, I abstained because I wasn't here.
Oh, okay. All right. Everybody that agrees, say aye.
Aye.
You don't agree, say nay.
I abstained as well. I missed that meeting, so I'll abstain.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The 2 abstained. So that gives us enough to pass it, right? Okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna have the financial report.
Okay.
Hand that to you.
I think that's me.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you this, Mark. You all have the sheets. I think the important thing is to skip in about 2 or 3 pages till you get to the one that says sorted by function. Everybody got that? Okay, basically, when we look at the revenue, we can see that we're, of course, right on schedule as far as our prior year revenue, which was warned and has been approved and has been received or will be received. Education spending grant is what the state is giving us. And then we have 2 items, tuition, which is at $15,000 today, and investment earnings, which are $23,496. Those were not in the budget, so they are favorable to the budget. And we're running at a balance of $38,496 to the good. I expect that, this is only through March, so we should get some more investment earnings between now and June 30th. So that should grow a little bit. And I thought we had 2 tuition students rather than 1. Can you answer that question, Angela?
We have 2 tuition students this year. Next year will be 1.
Okay, so our tuition is $15,000 per year and we have only booked it once. I'm not sure whether that's an ed issue.
I think it's billed twice a year, so we just probably haven't gotten there's another payment gonna come at the end of the year.
Okay, so that'll be another 15,000 of good news.
Yeah.
Expenditures by function, you can see that if you go right to the bottom, you can see that our total expenditures for the year are $102,641 favorable. Major good news is in the health services, where we had originally budgeted for a nurse and we don't have a nurse. And we also in regular education have $76,779 of good news. And that's largely, I think, due to the fact that we didn't have a kindergarten teacher for the whole year. And we do now, as we hired her recently. And we also have some good news in the operation of our buildings. And the only really significant bad news item is in tuition, where we did not budget for 2 students. And I believe both of those are going to the school in Ludlow, which we didn't really know about. And they were homeschooled and they appeared later. So that's a almost $40,000 issue there, but overall, we're good to the tune right now of $141,000. And that's probably going to be a little bit bigger.
Those students are no longer at that school in Ludlow, so that tuition, it won't be the whole amount because we're not paying it anymore. They withdrew.
Okay,
I guess the business office can probably get those exact numbers of what has been paid out, but it's not nearly as close to what you're saying, because they're not there anymore.
okay, so Ed has in there $66,000 more of encumbrances, probably some of those encumbrances was.
It's not actually right, probably what's been encumbered, and we're not gonna actually spend it, yep.
So financially for the year, we're in pretty good shape. If we go to the next schedule, you can see it's the fund balances. And the first part of the top part just identifies where the fund balances are today. The key really is the fact that we look at what our fund balance was at the end of 25, it was $732,274 in the general fund. Of that, restricted was $250,083, which we're spending this year to reduce our budget in this fiscal year. We also put aside $187,630 a year ago that was warned, and then we also warned in the last town meeting $150,000 more to go against this year's budget. So a total of about $337,630 to reduce the budget. That leaves a restricted balance of $144,561. Plus, we had a warning to convert the tuition reserve we had of $85,000 to this unrestricted balance for future years tax savings. So that's $85,000. And if we add in $141,138, at the end of this year, we should have a fund balance of approximately $370,609 as we move into the following year. Are there any questions on that? The other thing I would like to comment on is recently the education fund outlook came out again as of March 19th, 2026. And this is coming out of the House and it hasn't been approved yet, but it's what's there right now. And the property yield went up from $8,596 to $9,170. That's favorable to us. It means it has a favorable impact on your education spending. So consequently, that when we blow that through the numbers that we had before, the tax rate for Athens would now only be a 0.05% increase versus what it was before. So basically flat to last year. And Grafton, well, we can't say 100% what it's going to be, but it reduces the 5% increase down to about 2%. Now the legislature is only using half of what the governor wants to use of the surplus funds of 104 million. If they use the whole amount, obviously that's going to have a more favorable impact. The key is something's going to get used. The legislature will do something. Any questions on that? That's basically the information I have.
Okay. In the principal's report.
Sure. So there's a new format that the principals have been asked to use for our principal's report, I realized that it made it significantly longer. And so I guess I'm looking for how much do you want me to just like read from this? Do you want me to highlight just some big parts of it? Or do you want me to just go ahead and start at the beginning and just read the whole thing?
So most principals have been just trying to cherry pick some highlights out of it, so.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is the new template here. Please feel free to stop me or ask any questions as you look at it. But the enrollment right now is 28, which is steady to what I reported last month. Our attendance rate is the same as it was, but it is down as far as our goals are concerned at 92%. Our special education percentage is 39%. I was able to report on that because it hits the 11 threshold. So the state asked that anything under, any data like under 11 students, that data should be suppressed. So you'll see right below for 504 plans, it's not 11. And so that information, the exact total has been suppressed. We do have students on 504 plans, but it doesn't meet the 11. And same for EST plans. So an EST plan is like an educational support plan for students. And that's sort of the first step when a student starts receiving intervention. And we document and track their progress there. And we do have students on EST plans. But again, it's not 11, so that is also suppressed, which will likely stay that way on every one of my principal reports. So, and then as far as instructional leadership, if you look down at the second section, the WNESU goal is 100% proficiency in reading and math by third grade. And so, as far as our winter benchmark data, I had reported on that already. So looking at fidelity of implementation, all of our grade levels continue to use the scope and sequence that's laid out for the entire SU. So all schools are kind of on the same plan for implementation, and all grade levels are doing that and are on either module 2 or 3. And I know that our grades are focusing next on pollinators and animal defenses and engineering. They've also taken some field trips on that. And then I continue to be coached by Brett Bishop, along with Liz Hardy. We're doing that together every month. We go to one another's school and receive coaching by Brett, and are we able to look at classrooms and instruction and structure at both of our schools, which has been a really great advantage for both Liz and I. As far as culture and climate goes, our SEL interventionist, Adam, continues to spearhead the efforts, offering restorative practices to behavior and harm repair. There are circles that are done both in small and whole class groups, depending on the topic and kind of the problem that we're looking to address. This month, there was 35 behavior referrals in March, and there has been a total of 224 behavior referrals this school year. And looking at that data, also we use Shelley Wilson and Carrie Newton as a resource to discuss behavior, but also discuss attendance. And so as far as our average referrals per month, it sort of breaks it up. You can't really have half of an office referral, but it does kind of give that number when it finds out the average. So for March, the average was 1.53, and in February it was 1.8. So, you know, slightly trending down, but again, like you can't have like a partial referral. So it's just anywhere between 1 and 2 referrals a day. We've recently started to implement another way in which students can have a voice in our PBIS model at school. And so each class votes on the reward for their own Panther jar. So As you know, students receive Panther Paws for being kind, staying safe, taking care of their community. And when they do that, they'll get a Panther Paw and it goes in their classroom jar. And so then when the classroom jar gets full, they get to vote on a class reward. And so just yesterday, our K-1-2 class dressed as a character for the day. Very cute. But just that class did it because that's what they voted on. And then when they fill that jar, along with their class reward, they get a vote for our all school reward. And so right now, currently mismatch day, and a school scavenger hunt are up on the board to be voted on, but the school scavenger hunt is currently in the lead. Our students recently voted on our yearbook theme, voted on their field trips for their EL modules, and also chose what they were going to feature for music during our arts night that's happening. We do have several family engagement activities coming up that you can see there. Those are also down at the bottom under upcoming events. During our conferences under strategic planning, one thing that I didn't add in there is that we did conduct March surveys. So you might remember that on our continuous plan of improvement, one of the things that we are looking to address is families' perception of how we're preparing their students for years to come. And so on the panorama surveys back last spring, we did not really have favorable responses there. So we've been working this year at doing a better job at informing families of what we're doing, and then also capturing how that is being perceived by them incrementally throughout the year. So we asked in the fall during conferences, just on a paper survey when you come in the building, and then it goes, there's no name on it, so it's anonymous. And so families have been they were favorable back in the fall, and then we just did it again in the spring. And all but 2 families report that they feel like their student is being very well prepared, and both academically and socially. And then we still have a couple more to capture, so I'll put all of that data in my next principal's report. There's still a couple more families that need to come in for a conference and respond to that. And then looking down at this last part, this was an interesting one, took some reflection. But what are you planning for? Right now I'm planning to fill our art position for 20%, which is just 1 day a week. And then there's also a survey going out about some summer tutoring opportunities for students to come in to the building. I have a couple of teachers that would be willing to tutor students. And so looking at who might benefit from that and seeing families' availability, and then trying to put some groups together for families to bring their children in over the summer for some additional help and prevent that summer slide. What do you need? So there's a couple of things here. Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up the week of May 4th. And something that the board could do is write some notes of appreciation that would always be appreciated by our staff, of course. And to move our students forward, something that we've been talking about, especially in my coaching, and I know at the SU level, is operating with a sense of urgency around increasing our proficiency, which we heard loud and clear at our town meeting as well. And so just the board support in helping to drive this focus and ensuring that classroom instruction remains a top priority, and that the decisions that we're making place students in their tier 1 instruction at the forefront. And what do I dream about? I dream about our students loving school and feeling a sense of belonging and a strong sense of accomplishment. And I'm very excited to see our gardens this summer and look forward every year to our harvest in the fall. And then there is a list here of upcoming events. I won't read them off to you, but we're finishing up our VT cap. We have our spring arts night, our EL celebrations. We've got our kindergarten night, our Title I book night. Yeah, there's a bunch of things there to look forward to this for the end of the year.
Thank you. Any questions for Angie?
I know this is planning ahead. Do you have, something in mind for Memorial Day for the kids?
So this week we got an email, and so we're still sorting out kind of the details of that, and we'll get back to, that email next week. We've just been focusing on getting this VCAP testing done. I know that Memorial Day is falling on the weekend. So we're, looking at encouraging families to come and preparing those that are planning to have something to do on Saturday. But my understanding is it's going to look different this year because it's not during a school day, which happens every now and then. I remember that happened years ago. But I don't think it was like super well attended on that Saturday. So any ideas for helping that to happen would be great.
Yeah.
Are the daily behavior reports spread out among the entire student population, or is there a smaller universe of students who seem to get more of the reports?
It's a certain number of kiddos, yeah. It's not really, there are like, so there's a PBIS triangle that we look at. And you want to have, a certain percentage of your students that don't have any referrals or only have under 3 basically. And so we're meeting that. It is like the same students, the same repeated, yes.
And is there any special programming for those students to try to move them beyond those referrals? Or do the resources not exist for that?
No, the resources exist within our building. WNESU does offer separate programming, but these are behaviors that can be and should be managed within the school. They're not something that we would send students out for. But some of the things that we do are, fall in Adam's realm, our SEL interventionist. We have several students with behavior plans. So they have like an individualized behavior plan that is just for them. And there's resources and proactive measures that we take to decrease the number of disruptions, because that's really important, is to make sure that everybody else is still getting their education and are not being consistently interrupted by disruptive behavior. And so there's proactive things and things that we do that are in their behavior plan. And that's what we use the reset room for also, is to take the disruption out of the classroom so that the rest of the class can still continue on. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? All right. Thanks, Angie. I enjoyed reading through the report.
Yeah, thank
The
you.
format was
The
really
report
helpful.
is very useful.
Okay, great. Good.
All right, so we have old unfinished business, and we're gonna be talking about the rural school
Alliance.
alliance. Thank you. And that's.
Sure, maybe I could come up and.
Yes,
sit at the
definitely.
Table with you, I can just move that little chair on. That's all right.
So you can be seen by I'll stay fine.
All right. Oh.
That's all right. Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here, and I actually asked Lynn if I could come out. For the record, I'm Cheryl Charles. I chair the Westminster School Board, chair the WNESU Board, but I also chair the steering committee for what's called the Rural School Community Alliance. And it's really the voice right now in Vermont advocating for rural schools at a time when so much is kind of up in the air in terms of what's going on in the legislature. So I wanted to be here to answer any questions I could, to give you just personal insight about it to the extent that that's helpful. And especially because of the declining enrollment here in Grafton and the issues that you all are considering, I wanted to put that in the context of what the legislation is moving toward and how that might take shape, if I could. So I know some of you are pretty familiar with the Rural School Community Alliance. Do you want me to give just a few sentences of?
Yeah, we've got public here, so.
Okay, all right, and did I say I'm Cheryl Charles for the record? I don't know, I'm not sure if I did that. Okay, at any rate, so the Rural School Community Alliance is an informal organization, but it's being kind of parented by something called the Vermont Rural Education Collaborative, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that really does serve rural communities. But essentially, it's a group of people throughout the state that began to coalesce in January of last year when Governor Scott proposed creating 5 mega school districts in the state at a time when that would have dissolved all local school boards, would have dissolved all supervisory unions, and would have created just these big districts. And what that immediately says for us is geography and equity. And is it equitable for kids to be on a bus for a really long period of time to travel those distances to get to the schools in these larger districts? So it was about 5 of us that came together, some of whom were people that I had known through the Act 46 years of advocating for rural schools during that time. We've now grown to literally 100 towns and villages. Actually, it's a little bit more than 100 towns and villages. And throughout the last year and a half, we've spoken up in the legislature. We've really testified on behalf of the interests of rural communities. And some of the big ideas are not to force us to merge, not to dissolve the supervisory unions, because for rural schools, that tends to give us more local voice, more community engagement, lets us run our own schools, but get the benefit of the shared services that a supervisory union provide us. In our case in Windham Northeast, we save money through our food services that we now do throughout the state. Special education we do, and that's part of that's federal, but we also through transportation would be another example. We are, and through our professional development, and that's really improved what we can do for all of our schools while still keeping our independent town school districts. So anyway, those are the kinds of issues that the Alliance has worked on. I'm going to tell you that I would love to ask you all to consider, with those surplus monies that you may have in this year's budget, sending a little bit of money to the Alliance. And I'd like you to ask me some questions about that. I'll give you more detail, but I'll tell you that the Westminster School Board has donated $2,500 so far, $1,250 last year, $1,250 recently. So it's not a lot of money, but it's some help as we pay for the services of the Leonine Public Affairs group. And what they do, it's not like they go in and twist arms of legislators. What they really do is open doors for us. They say, could you let some spokespeople from the Rural School Community Alliance come in and testify? And so that's what's been happening. Andy has testified, I've testified quite a few times, but they want a diversity of voices. And it looks like Chris Hodgson will testify tomorrow. And the specific reason the Senate Education Committee is interested in trying to figure out whether they could push out the requirement in Act 73, which is the current education law, that's being considered for implementation. Right now, that law requires all of us to meet those class size requirements by July 1 of 2027. And the Senate Education Committee is considering pushing that requirement out by several years. And talking with Chris about it, he said that would really give a lot more flexibility to the high school. You know, especially if we looked at some classes, the enrichment classes, things like that. So at any rate, my point would be that by working with this firm, I don't know all the legislators, but our representative, Nick Sherman, can go in and say, these guys are credible. They come from evidence. They're research-based. They're rural. Give them a chance to talk. And then you guys can decide, what you want to do with that. I can give you examples of ways in which the Alliance has already made a positive difference. One specific example would be last year when the legislation required an act, what was called the redistricting task force to be formed. And a group of people were asked to come together to create maps to divide up the state. And they listened to thousands of people that we encouraged to test, literally thousands. And they ended up deciding that they would not recommend forced mergers and that they recommended the cooperative education service areas, what are now being called CESAs. But again, Andy, I'll credit you. You're among the superintendents instrumental in creating the first shared services model in the whole state of Vermont. It's the Southeast Vermont, what was called Board of Cooperative Educational Services. But at any rate, the Rural School Community Alliance advocated for go with the shared services model. We can save more money faster by doing that, and we don't disrupt and dissolve all the school boards, but we save money. And anyway, Andy is among the superintendents that successfully created that first shared service model. And it's the case. Now, let me jump to what's being considered right now. The House Education Committee has released something called House Bill 955. And thankfully, and again, the Alliance has had a lot to do with this, they've emphasized the shared services model. And they've dropped the requirement that there be forced mergers. So people are saying, well, gosh, Alliance, you won. But instead, what they did was add that all of our school districts are required to join a study committee. And to once again research what the pros and cons would be of merging into a school district. And so we have stated publicly, and I brought, those of you who don't have it yet, I actually brought copies of the statement that we released from the Alliance. So you'll see, we credit them, we thank them for dropping forced mergers. But we do say, Lynn, you've got this, we do say, please drop the requirement that we all participate in study committees and drop the requirement that we start as a baseline Representative Conlon's map of merged districts, because that was what they want us to use. So we're asking them to drop that and to just go with a voluntary process that trusts local people to engage. Now I'm going to go specifically to what Athens and Grafton is looking at. You have real challenges around the class size minimums. So we would want the Senate to relax those that timeline for that. But in addition, part of what we're advocating for is that look at the quality of a school and look at their cost effectiveness, and don't just decide that size is the only criterion. Really look at how the kids are doing and how the budget's working. So that's one part of it. But when you're looking at the kinds of challenges that our school population in Athens and Grafton is, our recommendation from the Alliance and from me personally is that you do engage in a study process, that you do get more information. And I think, Andy, I don't know whether you've presented that yet, but you've sought, okay, he's sought some information about what other districts throughout the state have done, and to help you get an independent person to help you assemble that information. The most important thing, I think, is for the community to decide, to get community participation based on the evidence and based on dialogue about what's important to you, what you want in the school and what's best for the community. So I'd really recommend you look carefully at the proposal for a process to implement. And I also can tell you that there are schools throughout the state that have gone through this. I mean, we know that Jamaica just voted. We know that Marlboro voted recently. I can help you bring people in to talk with you about that. Dan MacArthur is one of the people who I work with closely with the Rural School Community Alliance, has been the, chair of the Marlboro board for a long, long time, 35 years, I might say, at least on that board. And they just went through that process and they did it really carefully. I mean, he went there, his kids went there, his grandkids go there, it's tough. But what I think is important is for you to engage the community, do the research, think about what's most important. And we have people who can help you with all of that. What else is going on? I'm not sure what's going to happen with the House Bill 955, but at least I've given you some insights about that. I'm not sure what the Senate is going to do, but at least this week they're taking the testimony about relaxing the timeline for the class sizes, as I mentioned. So I think that's some of what I wanted to start with for you all, and just be happy to answer any questions. There still are many people who, well, actually, it was yesterday, the governor had a press conference with the Secretary of Education, and they once again advocated for what they're calling resizing the school districts of the state. And it's just a set of voices that don't understand the realities of our geography, the unique strengths of our small community schools. And so we just keep trying to bring forward the evidence. Let me make this really clear. There is no evidence to support consolidation really saving money in rural areas. What it does do is disrupt us, disengage us, reduce participation of the community in what's going on. So for all those reasons, I was spending a whole lot of time on this, you guys. You might be able to tell. I donated money.
Job.
What?
It's a second job.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, I mean, it really is. So to talk about if you guys would consider at least some, well, it doesn't matter what amount, but to make a contribution would be helpful. And so far, I think the range of donations have been from $500 to $16,000. We have one supervisor union that has donated that much money so far. Really, because it's about what's good for kids and what's good for taxpayers. And we want to put that all together in a very thoughtful way. So I think the Alliance is really helping us. I personally am donating, and I wouldn't be doing that if it were not something that I think is really important to our state and our communities. Okay, that's me.
And if I could just add one thing, I think the big piece, and I think in the press release, if you read through it, the governor's press release, and with the secretary, and they talk about system change, and that they use that, and you can read between the lines, however you want to read between the lines on that. The big piece is really about where they see the change is at central office. So the piece about closing of schools is potential, but that's 5-ish years down the road. That's nowhere in the near future. It's really about how to get rid of central office and get rid of superintendents, and that's where they think that there is some savings. The piece that I wonder about personally is as you consolidate down central offices and make larger geographical regions, to try and get around those larger regions, you're going to need people in those regions to be able to respond to needs in those regions. So which means you now need bodies in those regions. So you might not have a superintendent, but you might have a regional superintendent. So you might just end up changing a name, but you might end up with different bodies. And so I think that's where we get into is there really a cost savings? And that's what the research shows is there isn't a cost savings for a while. So
one more thing, Lynn, if I could, I would add that of the choices that you all are looking at with the size of the school right now, you could continue to operate, and then take your chances with the law, with those class size requirements as we go forward. You could have a vote of the people, and if the people voted to close the school, you could still maintain a school board. And so throughout the state, there are what are called non-operating school districts. And I would have you really look at that option because it allows you to stay engaged and it allows you to have more oversight. And it also allows you to have flexibility should there be a time when the school population increased. You can also, and you've gotten some legal opinion on this, you can also you could decide to merge. You could decide to dissolve your school board and become part of the Rockingham School District, Athens Grafton Rockingham. And that, if you did that, then you could figure out you'd just be part of that district. So you wouldn't have those issues anymore. You can also figure out, there is a designation, Holland, Vermont used this where John Castle is, where you can designate that you want your kids to go to various schools. I would look at that option. I would look at whether you could continue to have some kind of choice. You'll definitely have some kind of choice if you keep a school board, if you keep
I
yourself.
believe you can only name one though.
Oh,
I don't believe you can name multiples.
so there may be more flexibility if you retain a school board, become non-operating, and you decide where your kids go.
Yeah, and so that's what I shared with you all earlier. And so I do apologize because I realized after I shared it, I put Sean T, assuming you all knew who Sean T was. So if you didn't, Sean Tui is a partner with Lynn Blackman and Tui. And they are our legal counsel. And Sean Tui is an expert in Vermont constitutional law and so I had reached out to him just on advice, just to provide you, just as Cheryl's kind of like a breakdown. If you, so you had that just information, if this, then this, and so that's kind of a breakdown of just the variances of like, if you wanted to be a non-operating school district, what would be the outcome there? If you wanted to designate, what would that be? If you wanted to merge, what would that look like? If you wanted to merge with Rockingham School District and the Union High School, what would that look like? And then we had forgotten all about Westminster, and it was like, oh yeah, hey, we got to figure that one in. And so there's all these layers, and some of them involve the state school board and meeting that requirement. Some of them involve the electorate and a vote from the electorate. Some of them, like there are certain variances, and so they're layered and complex. And so I think they're just pieces to keep in mind as we move through looking at just different options. There's no like, we must do anything also, but it's just information. So we're not sitting there going, what if, and speculating. So.
I have a question. Yeah. We've had parents either homeschool their children for reasons, or they opted to have them go to a private school. What are the choices, other than within the district? Will there be choices for parents to go to an independent school?
In what, unpack that a little bit more for me so I can give you a very clear answer. So like in grade.
Like elementary 1 to 6,
Okay,
if they wanted,
if you became a
Because-
non-operating school district,
right?
and so that meant that everybody had school choice. And they wanted to send their child to an independent school. That independent school would have to be on an approved list from the Agency of Education. And that list is very, very short at this time. And the current schools, elementary schools around us are not, to my knowledge, on that list at all. And so the current, like the grammar school, where many of our families will send for 7th and 8th grade, where you currently have school choice. That school is not on that list. And so any families that had sent their children there for 7th and 8th grade, they were grandfathered in, so that if they went there at 7th grade, you still pay for 8th grade this year. But if they sent someone there this year for 7th grade, we're not paying.
Because you're not approved?
They are not approved.
That changed with Act 73.
What about somebody that went there in the 5th grade this year?
No, they're not approved. Because they do not have school choice rights. Because of you operate a K-6 school. And that's a very clear, that's a great question for clarity. Because you operate a K-6 school, they do not have school choice rights. So they're not grandfathered in, so.
So what if, a family, because of transportation where they live, because we're spread out,
Yes,
Athens is spread out, and don't wanna go to Saxon's River Soda, but they wanna go down to Townsend or.
So if you are a non-operating school district, then I'm gonna stick with that, because that's a clear one right now. So if you are a non-operating school district and you live closer to Townsend and you allowed for school choice K-8, let's say, then they would have the right to then go to Townsend, because that would be close to them. Same as if they lived over closer to Chester, and that's where they wanted to go. So they could take that script and go there. And then we, as a SU, because you still belong to Bellows Falls Union High School, we still have buses that are running, so we would continue to run buses. So those folks who wanted to continue to go to any Bellows Falls or Rockingham schools, we would continue to bus them in towards that. If you went to, if you went to a non-operating school district, but designated Rockingham as your district of choice, then that family who was on the Townsend line would have to go to Rockingham schools.
Why would we designate Rockingham? What would be the advantage of that?
Because Rockingham has indicated that they could maybe give a reduced tuition rate. So whereas if a family went to Leland and Gray or to Townsend, you're paying the tuition rate that Townsend sets, which could be $20,000 or whatever they set that tuition rate at. So you currently set your tuition rate at $15,000 here. You vote on that and you set that. But every school district has a right to set their tuition rate wherever they want to set their tuition rate. So when you're sending a student to a Rockingham school, it could be at their current tuition rate, which is at, say, 22 or whatever it is, $1,000. So every year that could go up. You can't control that. But if you designated Rockingham as your district of choice, you could go into an agreement with them and say, lock in. It's kind of like oil prices, right? Lock in at $15,000 for the next 10 years, regardless.
If a decision.
Don't quote me on that price.
If a decision were made to become a non-operating school board. District. I get the lingo right, eventually. Why at that point wouldn't Athens and Grafton go their own ways? Because the geography might make it as different for Grafton than it is for Athens, and the finances might be different for.
I don't think we can do that without going to the Board of Education, the state board.
Did not ask that question.
It's a good question.
Could go back and ask that question. I'm gonna speculate what Hardy just brought up. You would have to potentially go back to the state school board, get permission to divorce, essentially, which I would, again, speculate that there would be a lot of issue in that, because that's the opposite way they want everyone to go. And so there'd be some challenges there, but I didn't ask that question, and I can go back and ask that question of your legal counsel.
Well, the reason I think about it is that geographically and financially for Athens, Rockingham schools aren't so inconvenient. I mean, I live in a part of Athens where it's the most geographic would be the most geographically. For me, it's not terrible, but for Grafton,
Sure.
There are parts of Grafton where it would be very geographically convenient. And if you went to, I'm not saying this is what should be done, we're just talking, right? So, but if you went to, I can imagine the state Board of Education actually might be happy for Athens to enter into a 50-year contract with Rockingham. So it's possible.
Conceptually, just hypothetically, what you're saying if Athens Grafton were to separate, could Athens merge or something of that nature with Townsend or something of that nature? Conceptually, I I can conceptualize it, yes. But I could ask that question just to give you more information. And could Grafton then merge with Chester or Green, or whatever, you know, like,
Yeah.
yes, I mean,
But basically where we're going, I think, is this becomes important to discuss. And
I think we loaded it kind of well there, Marty, so, but I'm just gonna write a note.
I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm sorry. There's not the option for the react button. I think something that's difficult about the geography is even if right now Townsend might be closer for a number of folks in Athens, Leland and Gray is probably not going to be open much longer. So then there would be an even larger distance there. If we were to stay with Rockingham though, I think what's unique about Grafton is some kiddos in Grafton are right in Cambridgeport. And so Rockingham would be closer. Others are closer to Townsend and others are closer to Chester. So Grafton's unique because depending where you are, there's 3 potential high schools that the kiddos might be close to. I just think that's like a really unique factor. I'm not sure how many other towns in the state border 3 separate high school towns.
Yeah, good point. And I think last thing I said, you know, I think one of the maps that's out there, I think it's the latest Conlon map kind of thing, showed Wyndham Northeast merging with the majority of Wyndham Central, which is Leland and Gray and all of that. So, you know, it doesn't show any closures of any schools or anything, but it did show those SUs merging, which is but some of those districts did peel off, or towns peeled off to go with a couple other ones. So but that was merging into a district, not an SU. So
Because it just seems like Leland and Gray, just from the folks I've spoken to over there, is just getting smaller. And so it's like if Grafton was to go the Leland and Gray route, you know, 5 years down the road, it's like, well, then where do they go? Brattleboro, Burton? Like that's even further than Bells Falls.
Good questions.
Yeah, and I think it's just a time to try to gather information and talk it through.
that's why we need to have a few meetings in the next few months here to bring this into a head.
Yeah, so Cheryl, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And this conversation has led nicely into our next discussion, which is the sustainability study with Dave Nancy.
yeah, just to give a little bit of preview on this, at the town meeting, there was some discussion from some folks in the audience asking about doing a study and asking if I would lead and do that. And so I did reach out to and ask some folks, you know, are there people who do this? And I was kind of led to Dave Yonks, who's a former superintendent who does this work. And he did provide me with a proposal where he would come in and lead both communities through discussions you know, and what he's proposing is baseline data, do some collection and review with enrollment history and projections, staffing stuff, and then have some you know, facilitate some community engagement forums and some listening tours and sessions, and then come back with some final analysis and some recommendations. That would be an open discussion with everybody. And then with the idea of, you know, where does it go? Is it a recommendation to put before the voters of what to do? Or is it to move forward and prepare a budget to move forward? So that's kind of Dave's bigger proposal. So I don't know if that's kind of the real 50,000 view on that, but, I know you all have the proposal, but I don't know if there's any questions on that.
I have a
Did
question.
everybody get that proposal?
Yeah.
First question.
Question. Lynn,
Yeah.
thank you. I know I'm on high school board, but I care about this community a great deal, and I'm wondering if we're talking about comparing and contrasting schools, if we also talk about what are the special features of this school along with the school that we would be going to. So I think apples and apples is important. Apples is a symbol of education. Let's see if we can really look at comparisons, what makes Grafton truly unique and special, and what we're actually getting into. You could also talk about building strengths, what makes a Saxons River school or a Central Elementary or a Westminster school special compared to the school that we presently have. So real concrete information.
And I just, to piggyback on that, Dave's proposal is not a proposal to work towards closing Grafton Elementary School. Dave's proposal is to look at what does the community want to do and to support what, just as you're just talking about, what's valued in the community, and help the community talk through just that and to work towards that. So it's really about just helping to facilitate that conversation. So
my 2 cents on it are, I looked at the proposal closely and I may be remembering it wrong. But my thought was that the steps might have been, it might make sense to do them in a different order. If there's going to be community-wide discussions, I think we first have to provide the community with information so that they think about like the type of information that was just described, but also the various options so that they know, so that it's not just having a meeting and like, what do you think as a community member? Like, they should be educated about the situation first so that it can be an intelligent conversation with the community.
And I think in my conversation with Dave, I think he'd be open to amending this a little bit. My understanding is that's part of it, that piece of collecting information, collecting data and pieces. And then as the conversation is happening, is providing that information. But I know he's open to amending this to meet your needs.
Okay.
So.
I have a question or just a comment on this proposal. He wants to get a baseline. He wants to get information on cost, population. We already have a lot of that information. We know we have a declining population here. We do the budgets. I mean, your office and your manager, Ed, has all those figures. Isn't that pretty simple for him to just go in and look at all that? Instead of,
Would expect that I would work with him on that.
That would be good.
I mean, we're talking a lot of money here. This isn't free.
I think some of it also is in the deliverables and in the packaging of what is being put together. So, again, I can ask Dave to come and have a conversation with you. I'm just bringing you what he brought to me, so.
I'm not negating this, but there's a lot of good things in here, but I just, that kind of stuck out.
I'll be honest with you, some of it is, I can look at that, I can bring you all of those reviews. And it's the time to package it all together to provide with you that summary. That's a lot of time that I just don't have to put all together. So.
Maybe it's worth having one or two of us just have a follow-up conversation with him and ask some of these questions of him, and maybe you can massage the proposal.
Yeah.
Because I also, the way it was proposed, I thought it was a decent chunk of change, and that there might be things in there which are, I don't mean to be, a little bit fluff in the sense that, listen, we know our enrollment's declining. I don't need someone to tell us that. So, anyway.
So we're also you have to remember, he has to gather all these pieces together. We have the pieces, but we don't have them all in a packet. Yet, and we have the population, yes, but are there other pieces there that he needs to make these?
If you look at our budgets, we know we're paying, we know we're spending.
Yeah.
Some of it's not sustainable.
The financial is the easiest piece there is. Well, do that very quickly.
Well, I know what the current financial,
And I can give you
the financial, well, the real question is, what do the other options cost? And not just for 1 year, but what are they gonna cost for 10 years or 5 years or 10 years? They can actually raise our hand.
Krista, is that your meeting? Oh, we have somebody else there. The picture that goes with another name.
Someone else took men.
Yeah.
No, someone joined, but I'm still here.
Okay. Okay.
I guess I was gonna ask, thanks Mark for, I was like putting it up. There is no reaction button. I don't know why that's like that. I know what you're saying, Krista.
I'm not crazy.
You're not. It's not there. I wonder about like the public perception and the neutral party facilitation of a conversation and like how that might benefit like all of us. I wonder about like, you know, saying like Andy can grab, you know, certain data points, but I wonder about like the conversation being facilitated by someone who isn't a parent or isn't an employee or isn't part of the community, but more like just looking at this from more of a neutral lens. I just wonder if that is something that we as a group could see a positive in when looking at this proposal, if that's something that, you know, we value.
That makes sense to me.
I think it's very valuable.
Yeah.
Because he's not gonna take sides, he's just gonna give you the information.
Mhm.
Again, what I would, recommend to you, if you have some concerns, if there's a couple, Mark, as you just said, if there's a couple that you wanna, I can put you together with Dave and
Mhm.
I don't see any problems with that, so.
Would it be worthwhile for the board as a whole to meet with him?
Yeah. I can't.
Or would they rather-
You could, we'd have to call a special meeting,
Yeah.
so.
Which is fine with me.
Fine.
Mhm.
Everybody hears the same thing all at once.
Mhm.
So I'll have to check with Dave when his availability is and get back with you, so.
Okay.
Are there dates that you all are there dates that you're not available? Like, I mean, that are off limits?
Maybe he can give us some options.
Just a few days. Like there's a plan.
A few days.
Yeah.
I have some family engagements out of town, so if it comes, then you can take over for me. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we can't work around that.
Alright, we'll go from there.
So, yeah, I think. If everybody's up for that, let's work on that being our next step with this, is talking to him and getting a broader picture of what it all looks like. Thank you very much for putting this together, Andy. I found it very interesting. All right, so we are done with this and ready to move on for new business. So new business is the policies. That's our first piece. Did everybody get those?
Yeah. So, one of the things we had done, when we put together the work plans, the suggestion I had was that after we reorganize, each board, is to ask each board to just go through and, accept or, revote on just the A policies, which deal specifically with board governance. And it's just more of a formality, just to remind the board just of the pieces that you are responsible for. So when we get into board member conflict of interest, meetings and agenda, how we prep for those, public participation, notice of non-discrimination, community engagement, board superintendent relationship, the role and adoption of school board policies, and board member education. So those are your responsibilities as board members. Other boards have just adopted them as one big motion. They haven't gone through them individually. But these were all adopted at the SU level. We always worked as we adopt policies as an SU level. And then other boards I personally have served on, they've kind of adopted this norm where like every year, at the beginning of each year, we go through, we have the non-disclosure agreements, we do these same things. So just seemed to be a good practice. And so, which is why I brought it here in that norm. So that is the ask.
Okay.
So
I'll make a motion to accept the A policies.
I second that motion.
Okay. All right, so the motion and second are that we take them as a lump and accept them. Krista?
I
Okay, let's do it. Aye.
I,
Okay, no, if you don't. Ayes got it.
all right,
That was easy.
great,
So, accepted.
perfect. Thank you.
All right, so our next one is a special ed update.
Yeah, so we had a request, just on, just to bring up like what is the special ed process. Rachel here, tell me if I'm getting this wrong, just kind of, what is the special ed process and how's it kind of operate out here and that piece, is that?
And how, how are we doing and sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think, one of the first pieces just to kind of go over and remind people is when we're talking in a very general, this is kind of how special ed operates. And I went over this with Heather Willis-Doxey, our Director of Student Services. First and foremost, we encourage families, and we'll talk about it as like families, to reach out to their classroom teachers. So if there's a concern, that's the first, they should be reaching out to their classroom teachers if they have a concern. If they have a child with an IEP, we'd always encourage them to then reach out to their child's case manager. The next one would be to reach out to Angie. So that would be the next stop. If there's a concern and Angie can't answer that question, would then be going to Miss Willis-Doxey. And then if they're not getting an answer there, they come to me. And so we can do it. And we can get them answers. And so following that chain of command is very helpful because then we know what the issues are and we can address those issues. If we don't know what those issues are, we're kind of left in the dark and we're kind of running late to the game to kind of try and get those answers. So we just ask families and everyone to kind of follow that because it's really helpful. Because usually the teacher and the case manager have the most knowledge of what's going on at that time. So, but one of the questions we had was, how are we evaluating the effectiveness of our special educators? So we have one of the things we adopted as an SU is we have a teacher evaluation and effectiveness plan. And so we put that in place. When I came on as superintendent, there was nothing. So the previous administration had moved away from whatever plan we had in place. I believe it was a Danielson plan. So that's a model. Danielson's a model. That model had been shelved. And so there was a year or two where we had nothing. And so I was kind of going through COVID at that point. We came out, we didn't have anything. And so working with administration, we developed what we call the teacher evaluation and effectiveness plan. Then we worked with our association and with our teachers to develop a plan. It incorporates everything from our regular classroom teachers to our special educators, our school nurses, our school counselors. And we have a full plan on so teachers who are in first year, second year, and with our special educators, it takes in account not just the instruction they do in the classroom, but also how they case manage, because they have a specialty. And so that's part of it. So they are evaluated actually on that piece. So, and that is part of their evaluation. And there's a summative eval at the end of the year, that goes in there. And so a teacher who's new to us in their first 3 years, they get, a summative evaluation every year. And so that's a full write-up that the Director of Student Services does in consultation with the principal. Because obviously the director's not here all the time, right? So we need that consultation that happens. And if there's a decision that teacher who maybe came to us from another district, because I can think of one special educator on my head who came to us from New Hampshire, who had 25 years of experience out of New Hampshire and was, lost my words and I apologize. Highly decorated teacher out of New Hampshire. They come over, they're considered a first year teacher with us. We give them a mentor and everything of that nature. And they're on that 3-year cycle. If at some time in that 3-year cycle, between the conversation with, that teacher's not here but between the principal and the director, and with that teacher, it's determined we don't need to keep them on that cycle. We can move them into the next, like being an effective teacher, so they don't have to sit on that 3-year cycle for evaluation. And so, so that plan is there, type of thing. The evaluating the effectiveness of the program. So students on IEPs are monitored similar to regular ed students. So with that, we use MAP, and that's our in-house. Angie, help me here if I get this wrong. That is our in-house assessment. It's a local assessment, and we use that 3 times a year. So we do fall, winter, and spring. And that aligns with the VCAP, and that's the Vermont State Assessment. We use DIBELS, and DIBELS looks at students, it looks at students who are at risk, and that's done on a much more frequent basis and is looking at, are teachers doing it on a pullout, more or less, Angie?
So there's running records that are done every week. Progress monitoring, it's called. So that's done every week for all students, whether they're special ed or not. But then yes, the special educator will do their own progress monitoring based on the goals that are in a child's IEP. And so those progress notes go home, I want to say, now there's like one that should be going home soon. And that is, there's different assessments based on the goals on that student's IEP that there has to be progress notes on. So the assessment, yes, it can be those assessments that you're referring to, but then also there can be like classroom assessments as well.
And then I think the other piece is that every student who has an IEP, which is an individualized education plan, David Clark just went right into my head right there. So, they have individualized goals. And so, we progress monitor on those goals, and you're always working with that student to meet those goals. And then there's, progress notes that are sent home with the parent to meet those goals. And so you're working towards those goals. So, that's part of the whole evaluation piece and the effectiveness of, are they doing it? And that's part of, then you're going back and looking at how's the special educator, how's that programming working to do that? And as we're looking at programming, what are we offering at say Grafton? Is that meeting the needs of students? And then how do we adjust programming as we go along? So that's typically what we're looking at. So can we show progress on identifying children that need special education? So this took a little teasing out, trying to figure that question out. When I was talking with Heather about this, she said that they've begun to incorporate that what we're assuming that means. So I'm gonna ask you to clarify that a little bit, Rachel, but this was her answer. We began to incorporate that into the new monthly reports, and that just as Angie was kind of doing in her report. So as we kind of looked at creating those templates that are doing it, so then there's also the template is now at the SU level as well. So there's a standardized report coming out at the SU level. The real challenge is the size of Grafton, just kind of as Angie talked about, the specific size, it's kind of hard to report out when you have such a small percentage of students. So how do we incorporate the identification of students when you have such a small N size? That's really the difficulty without revealing information. And so we're working with our legal counsel around that. So as Angie was talking about, like when she said, I can't report out on these numbers, we're really talking about how can we report? Because we think that's important information. So can we say, hey, we've got 5 kids on 504s when we only have 26 kids in the building, type of thing. So we're trying to figure out how we can do that. So can we say these kids who are on IEPs are showing progress? That's the challenge. And I'm just trying to be transparent. That's really, and I want to clarify, is that kind of what the question?
I guess kind of my question was, I understand that you can't necessarily specific numbers, but a few years ago, it seemed like there was kids being missed that had needs, but weren't being identified. Are we improving on being able to identify those kids that should have an IEP or some sort of help, whatever program they need to be on? Are we actually identifying those children, or is it?
Yeah, and I think that's that's helpful in that clarification, because that's a bigger conversation with Deb Cardane.
Right.
And with our data teams and our MTSS system, and what they're coming out and how we're progress monitoring and how we're doing intervention and what's happening. So as we're, let's say with just reading, as we are identifying and we're doing that weekly progress monitoring of DIBELS and kids at risk, how are we cycling back? How are we looking at kids? How are we taking that data? How are we working it through those data teams? And then where are we taking all that, as Angie just talked about and I talked about, how are we taking all those different data points? And then how are we taking all that authentic stuff that a student's doing in the classroom, bringing it all together, sitting down and looking at it? And then, where does it lay out that, what does this kid need? Right? That's really the piece of it. And that's complex, for sure. And then how do you do that in a timely manner? Because that takes time. And if we don't do it in a timely manner, half the year's gone by. Right? So that's the, so let me go back with Deb and I cycle back with her, because I think that's her specialty on what she's doing. And that's been what we've been building quite a bit of. So
Can I just speak to that a little bit too, Andy? So each month, I think I've talked about this in my principal's report, but or I think it was but each month, Deb or Lily, so Lily is our math coach, and then Deb focuses on literacy. So every month we have a meeting, and the teachers, so like the classroom teacher will go, and the interventionist and the special education teacher, and then also either the literacy or the math coach. And we look at our interim assessments, and we look at those progress monitoring scores that are given every Friday, like for literacy. And the teachers sort of report out on how students are doing and if they're making progress or if they're not. And if they are, what is the next step? And we go, one of the great parts about not having that many kids is that we go literally student by student by student. Like every student is named in every one of those meetings every month about how they're doing. And if they're not making progress, what group can we put them into and what adult can take them to do that skill to try and address the gap. And we do that every month. At the beginning of the year, we lay out the schedule for the whole entire year. And so that is happening on a consistent basis, like with fidelity all the time. And I can look back at all of our notes for the whole year. So when we all come to the table and say, like, this student is not where we want them to be, we have months and months and months of what that child has been receiving, which is a lot more helpful when it comes to like an eligibility meeting for special education. And so that's when we might put that child on an ESC. And then we have all this documentation of what they've been receiving. And if they're still not making progress after receiving a lot of intervention and a lot of targeted support, then that's when we may refer them for an evaluation for special education, because we think that they need a specialized service in order to address their needs. So I think over, since I've been here, the process has gotten a lot more structured and scheduled, where like kids can't really fall through because every month they're talked about. And that happens for academics, for math and literacy, and it also happens for behavior and attendance. And that's with Shelley and Carrie. So that, and every child is named again, literally starting at the top of the list and going right down. And there's 3 meetings and I attend them. And so does our counselor if it's about attendance or behavior. And so it's very, we're lucky in that sense with so few students, we can talk about every single one of them every month, at least twice. And then Adam holds a separate meeting that is just a kid talk meeting so that he can help teachers intervene on behavior and work on like just a behavior plan. And that happens every month too with every teacher. I don't know if that helps a little bit more.
So I think, and then I think there's a question in here I kind of teased out is, can we see data that shows progress, or how do we evaluate? I know that progress monitoring data is collected and reported out quarterly to families, but I think the piece that we're working more towards is how do we share that out just globally more? And that's part of trying to have this more structured report back to you all as board members. So that we're going to get on a much more consistent basis, that kind of monitoring back. But I also want to circle back to one thing, that there is a perception that since I've worked in Vermont, and it's very unique to Vermont, that a student who has a disability has to have an IEP, and that student then has to have special education, and that's going to fix that child, or that's going to be the thing that child needs. In a true multi-tiered system of support, really what it is a student could have a disability, but it's putting that student with the instructor that's going to give that student the most support that that student needs at that time, which may not actually be a special educator. It could be an interventionist. And if a student has an IEP, it actually may still be an interventionist that is the best that can provide that support for that student, because not every special educator is a specialist in every single field as a math specialist or something of that nature. And it's one of the things, as we look broadly around Vermont, that we've run up specifically for us, a 33% special education rate for our district. And in Vermont, we have a 23% special education rate, whereas the country is about 13%. Because there's this thought like, this student has a disability, we've got to take them out of the classroom and put them somewhere else. And really, our whole goal is, how do we help our teachers be able to instruct every kid in the classroom, because that's where they get the best instruction. We know kids need extra help and second bites and third bites. So how do we keep doing that? And we do know there are kids that need extra help. So we're not saying, don't give them that and do that, but how do we keep doing everything? And I think that's that part of that progress monitoring all the time. And it's something we're constantly trying to get better at and look at where that piece is. And so it's a nuance and, you know, it's something we're trying to really, you know, battle with. Currently, you know, in our census block grant, we get about $2 million for special education. We run about a $7 million special education program. And so that's the challenge that we're constantly trying to figure out. How do we service our students so that they can get the support in the classroom from the qualified teacher? Because the curriculum that we're offering kids, we believe is robust enough that can really support kids with the classroom teacher at that first bite. And a lot of what the instruction is in the classroom or during those intervention times of cycling kids through, we're bringing intervention teachers into the classroom and the special educator, and kids are cycling through, you know, maybe those three teachers at the same time. And so that you might have regular ed kids seeing the interventionist because they're just cycling through and nobody knows who's what. And that way every kid's getting what they need at that time.
Can I just add a comment? You know, I hear a lot of data, a lot of people involved, working really hard to see that the child, whatever difficulties he's having, is gonna improve. And I think as a parent, the parent gets frustrated because it's taking so long and they wanna see progress. And some parents don't see that progress, they're frustrated. So, of all what you said, where's the part with the teacher or the principal or the interventionist with the parent to explain what's going on? Does that happen?
So parents are part of EST meetings. When an EST plan is put together, same thing with a 504 and IEP, parents are always there for that. And then there's also parent teacher conferences. And then if a child is like, we're thinking about putting them on an EST plan or starting them on intervention, we're always reaching out, you know, to gently say, like, you know, we think that your child might need some extra help because that might be a hard topic to kind of broach with families. And so usually the classroom teacher will talk about, you know, what progress they're seeing in the classroom and then how to sort of help them. So that's the part, that's when families get involved in that.
I'll add on to that. Schools can't do it alone. Families can't do it alone. It's a partnership, and the communication has to happen on a regular basis.
Right.
And if
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to.
right, and I know that, and that's why I'm that's why I'm saying, if parents are seeing or feeling something, we need them to communicate that to teachers as soon as possible. And if teachers are seeing something or feeling something, we need them to communicate that back to families as soon as possible.
Right.
And because the longer that separation takes, right? If we wait too long, then everyone just gets frustrated. And so that's why we've gone to things like, you know, Parent Square, so we can have that communication back and forth with families as much as we can. And as Angie said, sometimes it can get difficult to have that conversation, right? It's a hard conversation, and not every family is open to have that conversation.
Some
And
don't show up. I've been 40 years in education.
no, I know, and it's also helping.
ESTs, the 504s,
Yeah.
all of them.
It's also helping
Parents
teachers.
Don't come.
It's also helping teachers, you know, we gotta sit and coach teachers sometimes on how to have those conversations. And so that's a work that we're working on, and we're always getting better at it. but it's really, how do we engage our families? It's something that I think, it's
It's vital.
it's a goal of mine this year, is how we're gonna get better at it this year coming. And, is how we're gonna reach out to our families and how we're gonna make it better for them. Because we cannot, you know, we can't have parents just drop their kids off at school and think it's all gonna get better, right? And, because we only get them for 6, 7 hours. But at the same time, you know, they're sending their babies to us and we need to partner with them. And they need to entrust that we're going to do the best we can at that time. And so, yeah, I agree with you.
That communication is so vital that, you know, and sometimes I think it may not happen in some schools, and it may happen here, because I hear it not just as a resident, but as a select board member, school board member. You know, and I said, talk to the teacher. Well,
Yeah, and I think I'm, you know, I'm not gonna make excuses. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't always hear from the families that are hearing from people, right? And, you know, I'll tell you, as I was driving up here, I pulled over because I was talking to someone on the phone and I was losing service. And so I pulled over, put my hazards on, and all of a sudden, a patrol car pulled up behind me and I'm like, oh, okay, you know, like, and the deputy came up to my car and I'm like, you know, I'm on the phone. I'm like, oh, here, I don't know what I did. And I was probably, you know, I was trying to fumble, like, to make sure, you know, and I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? And the deputy comes up to my car, he goes, you're not in trouble. I just wanted to check on you. Right? I was like, oh, dude. You know, the whole way I'm driving up here, I'm like, I need to email Sheriff Anderson. Because why? He only hears when the deputy has done something wrong. First thing I did is I sat down here and I emailed Sheriff Anderson. Because I have a relationship with Sheriff Anderson and I want to make sure he hears from me, not only when I've got a complaint, but also when I think his deputy's done something right. And that's the same thing I think we need to do with our families, is we need to make sure we let them know when things are going right, but also when things are going wrong. So I agree with 100% with that. So couple more questions, I think, that were here. So so there was a question about, there's a feeling that, you know, Grafton's getting the short end of the stick in the district, and because there's been some absences up here. Can't go into a lot of things because there's some privacy pieces there. But we have had some challenges, and there's just not challenges here as well. So there have been just some staffing issues. One of the real challenges is when you have one individual in a building, it's kind of hard to make those shifts around. But that is one of the things that I've kind of tasked, you know, Heather with, is just because we have one person in a building, we've got to figure out ways. We can't just say, well, there's only one person out there. That's not a good enough answer for me. So I share that.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but let's just circle back to the beginning, right? But isn't like that one of the issues about the sustainability of a school where the student population is falling? And just to circle all the way back to the beginning, you know, we're doing great on a budget basis, but the reason we're doing great is because we don't have a nurse and a teacher that used to provide services to the students,
or a full-time art teacher, or
all those
use it,
right? So it all sort of ties
all
together.
sorts of that.
Sorry for interrupting.
I'm not sure if I caught the question. I mean, are you?
Well, first of all, it was brilliant. But there wasn't a question, it was an observation,
Okay.
which is, you know, a lot of these things are intertwined.
Is it a challenge because of the size of the school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I thought that's what you were asking. I just wanted.
It wasn't, it really wasn't, it was just an observation that all this stuff is all tied together.
Yeah. And I think it kind of fits in with the next one, which is, you know, why weren't parents notified when the special educator was out until a certain, you know, for a certain length of time. And I think that there, and Angie might be able to answer this question better, but my understanding was there was communication to the individual parents, but there was some remote work that was happening, and there were subs and there was some oversight. So it wasn't that the person wasn't just here. But again, there was, some uniqueness in that. And that the long term of that didn't actually come to fruition until just in the last little bit. And I'm trying to be as private as possible for that individual, and I'm sorry about that, but I don't know, Angie, is there anything you could add to that piece of it?
I don't want to touch it because I don't want to say too much.
But
I think what you said is fine.
I think it goes back to kind of what Kathy was just even saying. Could we have probably communicated better? Yes, I think that's 100% true. I think that it's at the end of the day, what will need to happen is we will have to be circling back with those parents and with those students and doing some looking at some progress reports and looking at if there's any regression with students and then looking at what those needs might be. So
I think that's more why, that's why I kind of asked that question, was just that, you know, you hear from your kid things and you're like, what's going on? And then you wonder, because it is a specialized thing, like, are you missing pieces because of that?
Yeah, and I think that's why I kind of started with it, like that, like if a parent hears that, like reaching out to us, we can answer that question directly and then they're not left in the lurch. You know, if there's a family that is concerned reaching out to us, we can tell them exactly the steps, because it's a lot easier to talk directly with that one family on the steps we will need to take with that individual family for that individual student. So they're great questions, so I appreciate it. So but I will circle back with Deb also on the bigger piece. So
Okay, we're all set on that. Good, thanks for bringing that up. All right, so moving on to review and approve the FY27 teacher roster. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Why it's in the budget?
Okay. We got them all covered, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Except art, right?
Yeah, except for that one open spot, but they're in, they don't have a number there, so it's not in the budget, okay. All right, so are there any questions in reference to this before we put it to vote? Krista, you okay?
I'm good.
You
Okay,
need a motion, I think, right?
yeah, all right, so no
I move that
questions.
we approve the teachers roster for the coming year.
Okay,
Second.
all
May
right,
I ask a question before you go to vote?
yes,
So this is a review of the teacher roster. How many teachers are there going to be for fiscal year 27?
so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 listed as teachers and one that's not open, one that's not.
Yeah, but some of them are,
We have full-time, we have
Oh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Plus six people, full-time,
Yes.
and then we have the rest of, there's a 0.2 teacher for art. 0.2 teacher open, that's the art is open. And we have 0.2 teacher for, I'm not sure what the library. 0.4 teacher. Jesse Peters,
is a total of 7 FTEs total.
yeah.
That's multiple people. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? All right, so Krista, how do you feel on the roster?
Aye.
All right. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. We got it. Okay, approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, and briefing notes, that's the roster. So director's comments, I guess we're at now. Kathy?
Very good discussion. Thank you, Cheryl, for coming. It's nice to see some people sitting in those chairs. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. You're good? Okay, Mark?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, Krista, any comment?
I'm good. I'm good, thanks.
Alrighty, thank you. Yeah, no, lots of good information, lots of good questions. It was informative today, thank you. Okay, date and time of our next meeting, so that would be,
Next regular meeting,
next regular meeting is.
and maybe Andy, you could do about a special meeting.
Yep, we'll have to see about a special meeting with Dave. There is a slight conflict because I think the next regular meeting is the 14th, and Westminster is having they're having their retreat on the 14th. So I just may have to work out with Angie and maybe someone else coming up here. Just I can't be in two places at the same time, so we'll just have to figure that out. So
Okay, I won't be here on the 14th.
so.
Doesn't have to be the 14th, right?
No,
Not have to be the 14th.
Well, I mean, we could wait till the next meeting, maybe, to meet with Dave. Do you think it would be? Or is that pushing it out too far?
I
You
think
mean
that's,
the next Thursday, the last Thursday of the month? You think of the last Thursday of the month?
The last Thursday of this month?
Oh, no, I was thinking, you said May 14th was a conflict for you.
yeah,
if you were looking at meeting with something with Dave, I would just thinking of a schedule because he's actually been bugging me because he's just trying to get his schedule. I'm again, I think he's just trying to, you know, he's a lister.
Yeah.
So I would, think that, that would be May 1st. We're on break, during the 24th, the week of the 24th. But that's your guys, no, like May 30th. Sorry, got the wrong date.
May
So,
30th is a Saturday.
sorry, April 30th.
Yes.
I'm looking at too many different calendars at once. So I could see if May 30th is a date that he is available.
Okay, that would be good.
April
May thir-
30th.
April 30th, yes.
April.
I'm looking at May 1st and saying May 30th.
I know.
30th.
Understood.
And then, if you're looking at, April 14th and, looking at a different date, I don't know if, if the 21st would work as an alternate date or, well, actually, I'm supposed to be somewhere else too, that date. You're really wanting me here.
What do we
Or-
want April 14th for? I'm sorry.
April 14th is your normal meeting date.
That's May 14th.
May 14th, God,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
May 14th is your normal meeting date.
Okay, yeah, got it.
It just happens to be a conflict with Westminster. And so I was just looking at trying to do something, but I can look to see if Deb Cardane or Shelley can come out here for that day. And so you can just kind of run down your normal schedule.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, okay, so
And not
everybody-
disrupt your all schedule.
And you're gonna check on April 30th for Dave?
I'm gonna check on April 30th.
Yeah. So May 14, 6 o'clock here. And if anybody has any thing they want to get on the agenda.
Would Dave come out to to our school, or would we be at the SU office, Andy?
I can't answer that
Okay.
question as far as where Dave will be.
Okay.
So. I mean, I think he lives up north.
Arlington, right?
So I think it would probably be
Please no.
better to have him zoom in just to have a conversation and answer your questions. So we always need to have a physical location, so if it's easier for you all to have the school here as a physical location, just
Mhm.
because it's easier for electronic reasons, I mean, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. All right,
And we're aiming for April 30th for that.
Yes.
Correct.
I just want to put it on our calendar.
all right. Any other things that we need to discuss here on the meeting dates, or we got it covered? All right, I call us adjourned at 7:45.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for watching this Fact TV presentation. If you would like a digital or DVD copy of the meeting, please contact us by phone or email. Our phone number is 802-463-1613 or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community Television, keeping government honest.